So here we have got a judge alone. This is the judge alone day. Different court again. Is judge alone trial. Okay, so instead of jury trials, this is judge alone cases where judges, only one judge, the judge makes a decision about the whole file or the whole case. That's the prosecutor versus the plaintiff or the defendant. So a judge alone is people, get a lawyer. Some defendants defend themselves and they didn't have to have a law degree because it was their file, it was their case. That's New Zealand laws. On this particular day, I've actually had a court activity team meeting. Now the court activity team meeting, I know that I've already mentioned this on my channel, is where all the staff get together and any issues that we've had throughout the week, whether we needed a backup help or someone is sick or there was a problem with the file or the court registrars have any issues I've come across and not happy about. This is the place where we discuss those kind of issues like a team meeting. This is where we all everything's out there and we all discuss different things that have happened throughout the week that could have been better, could have been avoided, but it was an open space for everyone to come out with any issues as far as their week has been. Because even though we were a team, we all had set jobs that we were all responsible for. So if one person doesn't do their job right, it affects the next person. You don't really know what your day's like. You go in there, you could be just thrown in to pick up somebody's job, even though you haven't done the job for a while. You're expected to pick up the file and just cover. So the odd time when you're like, oh my gosh, what do we do here? Because it's really complex. It's a very complex job because the registrar is the court or the administrator for the courts. They're the ones that actually run the court. They're the ones that actually opens court and they liaise between the judge and the counsels and the prosecutors. So the registrar is basically the one that is making sure that court protocol runs smoothly in court, and they also have that authority to take control. They're actually in control of the whole court. That is what a court registrar does. And usually a court registrar is always in the same boat with the judge because that's our responsibility, is to make sure the judge doesn't get it wrong, make sure the judge is safe, make sure the judge has everything he or she needs. So they're usually our first priority of the people that we actually look after when we're doing court, obviously, for obvious reasons. So this is the year where I ended up going on special leave, and unfortunately it was my last year. It kind of came on to me quite suddenly, being railroaded out of my job. So this is the year, actually ended up being my last year working for my employer. Even though I had a crazy schedule, keeping in mind, I'm a single parent. Like this year, my children are growing up, but by this time, a lot more growing up. But it was like for me, even when they were young. Every day was busy, unpredictable working environment. But you just learn to adjust and be resilient and adapt to change, because it was that kind of job. You either sink or swim. And here I had a meeting with someone in Auckland. It was like the start of my unfair dismissal case that ended up in the employment tribunal, or it's going through the employment process, and I won that. But this meeting here was with Carl Lewins and Juliet Island at Auckland District Court. This is like the first few interviews that I found with my court case. All right. Okay, here I also had another meeting in regards to my job get this, it's not funny, but this is what literally happened. While I had all this going on, with work pressure and trying to just do my job and stay focused on my job. Well, I'm these sort of persons, one of these persons that I have to give whatever I'm doing full commitment and full focus. So this here is another day that I had meeting with Fiona Parks in North Shore and Carl Lewins. Carl Lewins is the one that actually wrote the report, and Glenn Cooper was the organiser. So here on the 18th of August, I had a meeting with him. I was the one who put in the official complaint about the bullying, because even though I was working in the courts, it's organised crimes. I felt harassed at work. My working condition was horrific. I have no idea how I survived that. But what everybody did to me was very cruel. It was inhumane. And I've had a lot of time to heal and, be away from the crime scene. But from the victim's point of view, in all honesty, I cannot believe I worked in those conditions for a very long time. Everyone treated me invisible. After a while, through negligence, one person in the office could have a grudge, and you deal with that issue with that person, because, I've had a few where I'm very direct, and I'm one of these people, I deal with the issue in the moment. Very rare, I am very forward, but very rare I deal with stuff. I'm usually very patient and just let things go. Unfortunately, my environment was like that within my workplace. But it was like one person has a grudge, and then the alliance got bigger and bigger. And I started putting complaints, and what is a person to do to try and stop that environment? Is none other but seek help for support to get that environment from being unsafe or reaching to a point that becomes life-threatening to a person. However, unfortunately, through many negligence and me, all I could do was complain. And my complaints were in the moment issues that I had to deal with. But everyone ignored me. I was subject to very, very serious working conditions. They were putting out black rubbish bags. They were making threats to hurt my family, my children, historically, on and off. They were putting knives out. They were hurting me. Anything, they did anything opposite to hurt me. But it was something that continued not only just from work to home, it was vice versa. It was like they knew what I was doing at home, or anything that was going home, they seemed to know too. So, and I felt I was being intimately abused, literally. And I felt like they had me in such a tight monitoring or tight surveillance. They were trying to capture me, like trying to catch me breaking the law or making a mistake or cry or get upset emotionally. And I realized that I was subject to I was being exploited is the word. No other word for it. I was being exploited by my employer. And it continued. It continued from my workplace to home, and it has never left me. By this time, the criminal alliance had accumulated well in advance. And they all knew I was outnumbered, but that was my working condition. I was frustrated, but it was contaminated by a very serious criminal alliance. Now back to the actual complaints. It was me who put in the first complaint because I'd had enough of the abuse. The abuse, it was like I'd leave my office and then the public abuse was out there waiting for me. So if I wasn't getting abused in the office indirectly, I was getting abused when I went out in public. And everyone knew that was what's happening. Everyone knew. But everyone turned a blind eye. They all ignored. They all knew what was going on was very serious. They literally ignored me like I had no rights. It just got worse and worse. And the alliance was deadly. And by this time this year, it was getting to me, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what, after you see all the evidence, I didn't know what to do. So I once again made another complaint to the PSA to help me get myself out of it. The game involved relationship scams, and it involved Haronga and Dan Brady, who was my service manager, and it linked to the church. But it was quite obvious now looking back, I was subject to 2 alliances. They've already invaded my space. Hence is a reason why I put in a protected disclosure with the breach in 2006 when it first started, because church was my private space. Eventually they invaded that. I was under such tight scrutiny and I didn't know what I did wrong, but it was inhumane. So that's what happened while I was working. I was actually the victim and everybody knew about it. The Iko Haronga I'm talking about is the person that was a police prosecutor in court, and the Dan Brady I'm talking about is Dan Brady, my service manager. But everything was pre-arranged. I didn't know what to do. I can honestly bring up witnesses to prove that I was really one of these people, just walked in the office, get straight to my job, do what I'm supposed to do. We all had set things to do each day, and it was a full day. So I was always really focused. And just making things difficult, they set me to fail. They demoted me. They slowly demoted me and slowly took jobs away from me to downgrade me. And obviously this is the reason why the relationships setups were happening, was to downgrade me. But the alliance had sided with Echo. I don't know if she realizes it. That alliance followed me wherever I went. But the same alliance happened with Pastor King and Pauline King, where everyone sided with his wife, and then Moana from Church of Christ. And then it continued with Rob Osborne. Encroachment is what it's called. They were literally in my space, hurting me, using my life like some kind of compass. But they were also using me to build, I believe, from my point of view, they were using me to build false empires, like in the real world. And it wasn't until I actually got railroad and they made me go through so much, basically made my life a living hell. But during all this time, I felt like they were sucking the goodness out of everything I did. but they were persecuting me. They were tormenting me. They were actually inciting. Labour and National, they're actually inciting on TV. There's this division. The cause of division has started because of the privacy breach. The unfortunate thing, a lot of innocent civilians were walked into a trap, pulled into a trap, but it was a game. The whole thing was a game, a real life deadly game, because I felt that I was fighting for my life while I was working for the courts. And this is my evidence that I'm entitled to disclose. Ever since I lost my privacy, I know without a shadow of doubt they've recorded my every word. And the stalking and the cloning has been consistent, literally. But it's definitely been traffic in persons. Then they switch. The pain and the suffering is horrific. And so my last documents that I lodged with the courts, but I'm forced to go public, and now I'm forced to actually name names. But it is definitely a left behind case of several perpetrators.